What's up, YouTube? We just finished watching the FIFA World Cup draw, and now we are going to rank each of the 8 groups, starting with the worst group with the worst teams in it to the actual best group with the best teams in it at this World Cup. So we're ranking from, which is the worst group, the easiest group, to the actual hardest group to compete against. And that's going to be difficult. And there's a lot of people in the chat here, because we're obviously recording this video live on stream, that they're going to be from these countries. They're going to be upset with our rankings. Perhaps we're going to insult some teams. We're going to praise some teams, and we're going to have to be objective because the United States is in the World Cup. But first, what you need to actually see are the World Cup groups. And so we've got a look at the World Cup groups here. You have Group A, Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, Netherlands. Group B, you've got England, Iran, USA, and then Ukraine, Scotland, or Wales. Absolutely nothing loaded about that group at all. Literally absolutely nothing loaded about that group at all. Group D, you've got, I can't do the alphabet, chat. I can't do the alphabet. I don't know how to do the alphabet. I'm going to move you guys down a little bit, by the way. Don't you dare suggest that I'm quieting you. I'm just moving you down a little bit. I felt like we were blocking a little bit too much of the face, but I also want you guys to be a part of the video. We're being silenced. The revolt begins. So, since I've just relearned the alphabet, Group C, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Group D is France, the playoff winner between Australia, the UAE, and Peru, Denmark, and Tunisia. Group E is Spain, playoff winner between Costa Rica and New Zealand, Germany, and Japan. Group F is Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. Group G is Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. And Group H is Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. You got it? You missed B? No, I read B. There's nothing loaded about B. England, Iran, USA, and then, likely Scotland or Wales. What could possibly go wrong there? So we're just going to take this from the top. We're going to take it from the top. The worst group at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Everybody say it together. Everybody say it together. Group H. Group H is the worst group at the 2022 World Cup. I think Uruguay is worse than Mexico, and that's really what it hinges on. And then South Korea is definitely worse than Poland. Ghana and Saudi Arabia are comparable. I think Group H is the worst group at this World Cup. It looks like the worst group. Portugal was a bad team from pot 1. Ghana's a bad team from pot 4. Uruguay was in the bottom half for pot 2. South Korea was in the bottom half for pot 3. It's a bottom half group in all 4 pots, chat. I told you, we're going to get controversial, but this is the ranking here. Group H is the worst group at this World Cup. It's got brand names, but I don't think the teams behind the brand names are very good. As somebody that watches a lot of the World Cup qualifying, Uruguay had an awful stretch in qualifying throughout the middle of that process. South Korea was not tested in qualifying. Ghana shouldn't have even gotten out of the groups in qualifying. They got to the playoff. They cheesed their way by Nigeria because Uzohu couldn't make a simple save, let a goal in. They got through on away goals. Ghana's really, really bad. South Korea's unproven. Uruguay is, it was very uncomfortable qualifying until literally the second to last qualifying window. I'm going Group H is the worst group at the World Cup. Now, I think there's very clear... There's 4 good groups and 4 bad groups here. The second worst group. What do you think the second worst group is, chat? We're going to do like an editorial slow scan of the groups. What is the second worst group at the World Cup? The second worst group at the World Cup is Group B. That's right. Hating on my own. I'm hating on my own country. Not necessarily. I think that Poland's better than any of Ukraine, Scotland, or Wales. Mexico and the U.S. is a push, but Poland, Mexico, and Argentina is a better triumvirate than England, the U.S., and Ukraine, Scotland, or Wales it is. I think Group B is the second worst group at the World Cup. I think England's got to be incredibly happy. I know the matches are going to be really intense. The rivalries are going to be really intense. But I think that, I legitimately do think that Group B is the second worst group at this World Cup. And that's where it's slotting in. And so we take our little animation, slot it in there as the 7th best team at this World Cup. We're sleeping on Iran. I think Iran's good. I think they're probably better than Saudi Arabia, but you can probably tell where I'm going to go with the 3rd worst group. The 3rd worst group of the World Cup is Group C. Argentina is ecstatic. I think England, Argentina are both very happy. Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Mexico, not great. They've been wanting to fire their coach for a while. Poland, also not great. They were outclassed by Sweden. I said they deserved to win because they did. They were more precise. They had a great tactical setup. They were creating chances. They were scoring chances. But Argentina is a mile and a half ahead of the rest of the teams in this group. And I don't think it's going to be much of a competition. It doesn't mean it's going to be a bad group, though. Like, Group B is going to be interesting. I think Group C is going to be very interesting. Who gets it, Mexico or Poland? Can Saudi Arabia make literally any noise at all? I don't think so, but like, they're at the World Cup and it's technically possible. Group C is just not very good overall. It just doesn't have that like second team. I think when you draw a CONCACAF team out of pot 2, you're just not getting that like second team. CONCACAF teams are pot 3 teams, and they probably should have been for this World Cup, but we have inflated world rankings, and so it doesn't matter. So England is in the second easiest group. I think Argentina is very happy with Group C. Now, what group is the 4th worst group? We're talking about groups that are kind of middle of the road in terms of their quality. What do you think I consider one of the 4 bad groups at the World Cup? The answer is A, because you just don't have that like world-class team. That is what drags them back. Right? You've got Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, all very good. Netherlands probably the best of the lot. And I don't mean to go at the Dutch too much by saying they're not like one of those world-class teams, but you don't have a Germany, you don't have a Brazil or an Argentina or an England or a France. A is the 4th worst team at this World Cup. And look, I know a lot of people get attached to brand names here, so I see the people in the chat. I see, I see you through the lens looking at me like, you serious? You really? Senegal's fantastic. If you have the opportunity to watch them play, they dominate the teams that they play in Africa. They outshoot them like 3, 4, 5-fold. The Netherlands, back at the World Cup, full of energy, full of a solid start, at least, in the Euros. And Ecuador, who nobody seems to know anything about, but they finished above Uruguay, they finished above Colombia, Chile, and Peru in World Cup qualifying. They took points off Brazil and Argentina in World Cup qualifying. So even though we know nothing about them, we know that they were very, very good in South American World Cup qualifying over the last couple of years. That means Ecuador is good, Senegal is good, Netherlands is good. Qatar, I defend them tentatively. They're better than you think they are, but they're still bad. Like, I think they're better than Saudi Arabia, but they're still bad. And so they're gonna maybe take a point off somebody in this group. Maybe the first match against Ecuador, the Ecuadorians are nervous. They're back at the World Cup. I don't see Qatar being I knew Qatar had a chance if they got an easier group, but they got one of the hardest possible groups they could have gotten. So Group A is the 4th worst group at this World Cup. Unfortunately for Qatar, because it should have been much lower than that. Will laser pointers be allowed at the World Cup? Likely not. All right. What's a top 4 group talent-wise now at this World Cup? Who is the 4th best group at the World Cup? Chat, who do you think? Group F. I saw some of you agree with me. Some of you don't agree with me. I think Group F is the 4th best group at this World Cup. Belgium, really, really good. Not one of the top 4 teams in the world. Croatia, really, really good. Pretty similar to Belgium, to be perfectly honest, when you look at recent results in qualifying. Canada won CONCACAF. I don't know where this came from, but Canada won 6 straight games in qualifying, and there are very few teams in the world that can say they won 6 straight games in qualifying at home and away. Canada's very good. Morocco, a little worse than you might think. They don't have Hakim Ziyech anymore. He is retired from international play after getting in a fight with the manager, which means that Morocco's a little bit more watered down. They don't have that one extra world-class talent to add in, but they do have a really strong base. This is the same Moroccan national team that was able to threaten at the last World Cup. Canada, Morocco, Croatia, Belgium, very balanced, very high-level group. I think Canada and Morocco are on one level. I think Belgium and Croatia are on another level. I think they're going to be able to punch each other back and forth. I think Canada and Morocco will end up with at least a point in this tournament. And I think Group F, though, on the other side is missing even one of those just top teams in the world. Those teams with a national pool that goes 3 miles down at every position where you're going to have a world-class player no matter what the heck happens. And that's why Group F is also 4th, where you have a couple of other groups that might be more imbalanced and will be less interesting, but are better groups and more deadly groups to be in terms of the quality that you're going up against, if you happen to be in that group. So to recap, because quite honestly, I barely remember what I've said. It was H, B, C, A, F, which means the groups we have left are D, E, and G for the most difficult group at the World Cup. You ready? Give me a drum roll. Give me a drum roll. The 3rd best group is Group E. Spain, Germany, likely Costa Rica, and Japan. Why? It only has 2 really good teams in it. Costa Rica, even though they just beat the United States, and they're white hot right now, doesn't have a lot of talent. And that will be exposed by Spain and Germany, even if the U.S. can't do it. Japan lost to Oman to start their qualifying campaign like a year ago. This is not a team that really has the opportunity to compete at the level that it did 4 years ago, I don't think. And then they got handed a brutal group with Spain and Germany. This is equivalent to the Morocco, Iran, Spain, Portugal group that we got at the World Cup 4 years ago, where you're looking at it and you're like, there's 2 teams that are going to end up. Like, you go into the 3rd day of matches in this group and it's already going to be decided. Group E is just not going to be very interesting. You're going to get to watch Spain and Germany play at a World Cup. I think if there is one team that has a chance to make it interesting, it's Japan. They had a great finish to qualifying, but they have shown that they're a little inconsistent. Japan played some high-pressure matches and got good results in those high-pressure matches late in qualifying, but it is hard to trust that translating to this point, because this is like, you know, they were playing against an Australia team that seems to be the worst Australian team in like 4 qualifying cycles. Top 2 groups then. We have Group D and Group G. What's the second best group then between D and G? Who are we looking at? That means the group you're saying, most of the chat's got this one. D. D is the second best group at the World Cup. France, Denmark, 2 top 10 teams in the world. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think France is the favorite to win the whole thing. Denmark made the semifinals at the Euros. They were the first team to qualify out of Europe. They are fantastic right now. The issue for this group was that they got Tunisia out of pot 3. That's the worst team in pot 3. But Peru, if we assume Peru, no offense to the Emiratis, the Australians in the chat, but if we assume Peru, that is a South American qualifier. And that is what has elevated this group over Group E, in my opinion, is that you've got that 3rd team that you know can hang with anybody. And I know Peru can hang with anybody. They played a ton of high-pressure matches in the last 2 qualifying windows in South America. They got great results all the way through. Group D is the second best group at this World Cup. France, Denmark, likely Peru, and then Tunisia is what weighs it down. There is no group of death, in my opinion. No, there is no group where you have like 3 teams that are just outstanding. But the closest that you get is Group G, because Group G, let's slot that right in there at the top. Group G is the best group, talent-wise, at this World Cup. Brazil, the #1 team in the world, unbeaten through South American qualifying. I consider them the 2nd favorite for this World Cup. Switzerland, qualified automatically out of Europe after reaching the quarterfinals in the Euros. Serbia, qualified automatically out of Europe. You know how freaking hard that is to do. We're talking about the 2 teams that put Italy and Portugal into the playoff. Those 2 teams, Italy and Portugal, are in the playoff in Europe because of Serbia and Switzerland. And then Cameroon, who's got a very deep national pool and is always solid. Cameroon is not Ghana, right? Ghana ebbs and flows much harder than Cameroon. Cameroon's made more World Cups than any African nation. They have the ability to put a competent team on the field more often than any other African nation. They will do it again here. They showed it at AFCON. They got to the semifinals. They showed it against Algeria, the kind of heart, the constitution that the national setup of Cameroon has. You go down in extra time. You have to go on the road and win to go to the World Cup against Algeria, and they did that. Ghana's not as good as past Ghanaian teams at this World Cup. No, they eked out an away goal against Nigeria. That's how they made the World Cup. You know, if you're Ghanaian, be proud. You're at the World Cup. Yes, you're back. That's awesome. I'm just saying, I think, you know, Ghana now is not the Ghana that you when you see the name you think of. So I think Group G is the best group. I think, with the exception of Cameroon being able to beat Brazil, I think everybody else can beat everybody else. I think Cameroon could beat Serbia or Switzerland. I don't think either Serbia or Switzerland have the offensive firepower to guarantee that they can break through Cameroon, right? Because Cameroon is pretty impervious to being blown out, to be honest. That's like their blessing. They're not a gifted goal-scoring team, but they are impervious to being blown out. And they've got Choupo-Moting up top, and they've got Toko Ekambi up top. And these guys play in Europe at a high level, and they are good. I think that when you've got somebody like Vlahovic, you've got a Swiss national team that is at its high watermark literally ever. In Brazil, in there, they're back to being one of the best few teams in the world. Not that they ever weren't, but I mean, they went unbeaten through qualifying in South America. I'm not saying Brazil's not qualifying. I obviously will make Brazil a favor for that group. I'm just saying that Switzerland and Serbia are capable of beating Brazil. It's possible. Cameroon, I don't think it's possible. Maybe they could hold them to a goalless draw, but, you know, we'll see how everybody shows up on the day. We're going to be making a lot of content around the World Cup. I obviously love the international game. This is the holy grail of the international game. We're going to be making a lot of content. Deep dives on each team is definitely something I could consider doing, or, you know, making one video, I'd say, on each group and kind of digging into each team for 5 minutes. I think that would be a really, really fun thing to do. All right, according to chat, the video that you should check out next to familiarize yourself with the channel is actually that one. It's the first video we ever made. So enjoy that. Say bye, chat. Thanks for joining us, YouTube. What a fun draw. US and Iran.